thank you again to everybody that has decided to join us today, or just clicked up into 100 participants. That's pretty good going. So thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. We know it doesn't come for free. So first off, a bit of an introduction, right? So I was reminded of this quote by Robert Frost's poem this week by Randy Altman from Post Perspective, I think. The best way out is always through. I think in this difficult time with the coronavirus going around, then remote working is going to become the norm for some time for many businesses. And so we decided to run this webinar. For those of you that joined us for our news webinar last week, you'll know that we accelerated some cool stuff with proxy and remote Premier workflows to get that launched last week. And so we're going to talk through a few ways that people can use their CatDV systems to work remotely, and then move on to showing a pretty cool demo of how the Premiere panel and the remote editing can work, and the remote encode can work with CatDV. I guess the context of this is, and why did we decide to run this webinar? We've had some really cool examples of where we've been able to help customers in these last few weeks. One was a major fashion house that wanted to enable their editors to be able to, and their creatives to work from home. And they wanted to be able to access their masters that are stored on CatDV from home. Turns out they had the capability, it was all set up, they just needed to turn a tick box on in the configuration to expose the masters link in our web clients, and they were up and running. We had another pretty cool bit of feedback that as part of an internal exercise to share folks' experience in a large corporate about working from home, they wanted a mechanism to very quickly harvest media that had been created, pictures and videos of people working in their home environments, to share stuff around and generate some community. And within 24 hours, we had a little CatDV site up and running so that folks could contribute their content, and that was really successful too. And there's been tens of those. Our support team is doing this stuff pretty constantly. So that's why we're doing the webinar. Ultimately, what is it that people are looking to do? Particularly at this time, people are looking to reuse and repurpose their existing content when it's more difficult to shoot new stuff than ever before. People want to collaborate remotely, so not just get stuff to me, but be able to work as part of a team, irrespective of location. And then it's a bit cheesy, but almost have their media find them. Where the content came in on some camera card, or the master's on an LTO somewhere, or it's in a cloud storage somewhere, or it was born in an S3 bucket. If I'm at home, I just want to have, I want to be able to get on with my work. I want the media to come to me rather than me have to go and search it out and understand the storage landscape that the organization that I work for has set up. So that's, I think, what folks want to do, and hopefully we shall be able to talk through some of the ways that people can do that with CatDV facilitating. The main kind of presentation bit is me, and I'll be talking through 5 different ways of being able to use CatDV remotely: PC over IP, VPN, putting CatDV available on the internet, a separate distribution server. That's a new thing that we've just been able to do, and we got deployed at a pretty prestigious book publisher. And then just to show what we can do with customization, there's a couple of projects we've done where we've been able to share stuff via Dropbox and such like, with a pretty small amount of customization. And then really the showcase, the exciting bit, I guess, is taking a look at our new Premiere Panel 5, which enables remote proxy editing. So downloading of proxies to the local machine, and proxy editing, rendering back at base where the masters are, so you don't have to ship loads of data. And then if new content's created locally, then also the panel can upload that, and CatDV will ingest it and put it in a sensible place. So there's lots of options, I guess, with CatDV, so that people can make choices about the stuff that is most relevant, most useful to them. So, okay, so first off, PC over IP. So PC over IP. So what's that? So it's screen sharing or sharing of keyboard, video, and mouse over an internet connection or an IP connection. You essentially dial into a computer at the facility. You can either go in with something like a team viewer where there's kind of a piece of software that runs on a machine and you're dialing in as a one-to-one. I dial into my machine and in the office, and my machine in the office is running the team viewer client, and they work together. Or they can get pretty sophisticated. So you buy a big gateway that can handle several, tens, if not hundreds, of desktops that it's running for you. So they can be one-to-one or they can be one-to-many. It's pretty easy to set up, arguably, at least for the simple ones. I guess the complex ones are less so. But the big downside is one of latency, and especially for video playback, if folks are trying to make some high quality content, anything that's going to be high acuity, then it's not really going to be super cool as a user experience. But it does have upsides as well, because you don't really have to learn how to do things any differently, because you're dialing into the machine that you use every day or an edit suite that you use every day. Then everything is exactly how you'd expect to see it. So storage is as you'd expect it to be. Your desktop looks exactly the same as it would. And it can be pretty secure because the network traffic can be encrypted. Essentially, what's going on over the network is keyboard, video, and mouse. So we're sending pictures, stream of video over the internet connection, and you're just broadcasting that as if it was an external screen, but at a distance. So what the diagram on the right is trying to say is you've got your CatDV system, you've got some PC over IP software or a gateway running one or more desktop clients essentially. And then you have your KVM traffic going over the public internet to the machine you want to work on. So PC over IP, pretty quick to set up. A lot of people do use that. I think I've heard people say that they had to pop into an office and they looked around and there was 50 machines, all of which were just, running themselves, it looked like. So, I mean, a lot of folks do find that works extremely effectively. And there are some pretty specialist tools as well. So there are things like Teradici and Amulet. They really try to use some very clever compression technologies that are particularly suited for video playback and large scale. So it can be a really good choice. And often IT departments can set these kind of things up and have them all ready. So if they're already available in the facility, then they're all good to go. Step 2. VPN, and a load of our customers take advantage of VPN. One of the things that's really nice about it is that it's probably already blessed by corporate IT and security. So if you're working with valuable content and who isn't, then making sure that your content and your CatDV system is secured and only accessible by the folks that really should be getting at it, well, that's a huge step. So VPN, secure gateway into the network, probably already blessed by corporate IT and available already in larger organizations anyway. Again, it feels like being at the facility. So essentially, rather than broadcasting a screen share, then you're using native applications traffic, so your PC is accessing the CatDV system using normal CatDV protocols, RNI or HTTP. Storage and pathing is already set up, and security to those is already set up. So it does have the feeling of being like you are at the facility, which is all pretty convenient because people don't have to learn how to do things any differently. Again, so if we're shipping around large volumes of data, then VPNs can add some latency and they can have some bandwidth issues. So maybe you don't want to be moving masters around and because you're going to get high latency, it'll take time to start playing and the quality might not be good until you pause. But from CatDV's perspective, you've got pretty much all the options available that you'd have if you were in the facility. So you can use our browser clients, use proxies, is probably a good idea because then you're not trying to ship lots of data in the video images over the internet. You can use the desktop client, which can also use proxies if you like. Our desktop client is also unique in it can work offline. So if you genuinely did have a very slow or unreliable internet connection, you can take your CatDV catalogs that are stored on the CatDV server, and you can take them, save them locally as a local.cdv file, make your changes, update your metadata log and tag, and then when you want to resync back to the server. So for many years we've been able to export and import, but about a year ago, we added the ability to synchronize. So any changes that we made to offline catalogs would then just get merged when they went back online, which is pretty cool for organizations where more than one person's working on a catalog. And then our new CatDV Premier panel with proxy download is a really cool option, which we'll take a look at later on. Okay. The third option is to expose your CatDV system over the internet to your users. So you're using HTTP traffic, so Internet Protocol traffic, to be able to talk to CatDV. And we've added some options so that more of the CatDV components can talk Internet protocols rather than a kind of internal networking protocol. So we talk HTTP rather than RMI. With communications with our desktop client and our worker now. Or you can turn them on. So that means that it's much easier to set this kind of thing up because the worker and such like will use the same connection as our web clients have already been set up to use, 8080 as a port, for example. Security is a big concern or a big issue, if you like, when working in this kind of model. And it does need to be thought about, and it does need to be configured. So CatDV's got lots of ways to help folks to do that. So we have a SAML2 integration, and we have two SAML2 endpoints as identity providers already coded up to, and that's for Okta and Shibboleth. And a lot of folks use those very successfully to be able to ensure that we have two-factor authentication. So something that you know and something that you have, a device that you run on your mobile phone that gives you a code to type in or that knows it's you somehow, the fingerprint or facial detection, something like that. So two-factor authentication, always a very sensible idea. And then in terms of setup, then there are a few things that we very much recommend at the same time. And the little picture on the right is trying to show what they are. There is a protocol called AJP13, which means you can put a second web server in addition to the one that CatDV provides in a demilitarized zone, DMZ, firewall everything off, and restrict traffic that can get from the outside world to your CatDV system. So AJP13, DMZ, and firewalling, that means that the DMZ web server can only talk, is the only thing that can talk to the CatDV system, and nothing else can. So all traffic has to go through the DMZ web server, and that's the Apache logo going on the feather thing on the right. So that's pretty cool. A lot of people do that. Our team can advise about how to get that set up in CatDV. I guess there is a small health warning that we do always suggest that your security and IT folks take a good look at what's recommended and make sure they're comfortable and happy with it. We're more than happy to answer any security questions about CatDV. We regularly do lots of penetration testing ourselves to be sure that our code is secure. Yeah, more than happy to talk to corporate IT departments about how CatDV is secured and how this can work for our customers. If we want to get really careful, then fixing an IP address and whitelisting connections, if possible. Maybe not so easy with home internet, but here we've got a couple of internet connections to the house because we've worked remotely for so many years, and both of them now have fixed IP, so that's fine for us, but it's not necessarily a matter of course thing. So a fixed IP means that the firewalls can know that Dave's at a particular IP address and only let in connections from my house, essentially. So so that then enables folks to talk over HTTPS to CatDV. So, and we should say HTTPS is absolutely the thing. You shouldn't use HTTP. You should use HTTPS to talk through to CatDV. Again, we can help to set that up. And how would you use CatDV? Well, you could use the web client, and that's going to be the recommended option, so that we're using our web proxies automatically. The install client, as we said, can use HTTP rather than the RMI connection that it uses when it's on the internal network. And again, we have our Premier panel, because the new Premier panel with the proxy download uses all of the HTTP traffic for file movement as well as for metadata movement. So that's a pretty popular option. We know a lot of our customers make use of. Well, I've got a little screenshot here. So this is just from my machine this morning because I was testing stuff out. Then you can see here that I've got a host name of, so this is the desktop client's login box, and the desktop client's login box, if you just type in, rather than a normal network host for a normal machine, if you talk an HTTP one, then it automatically configures itself to talk internet protocols rather than our internal ones, which is pretty cool. I have to go searching for how to do that. So, okay, the next one is a CatDV distribution server. So the picture on the right, I think probably tries to explain it. And you can see we've got our main CatDV system as before. So if I just flick back, we have our main CatDV system with a separate web server. What we're doing here is having our main CatDV system with then a distribution CatDV system, and then again the same protection with a DMZ web server with firewalls all over the place. And what this lets us do is to replicate a subset of the CatDV metadata and a subset of the CatDV media to the distribution system. So there's another hop that makes it even harder if there's somebody trying to hack into a system to get close to your main content. And so what we'd probably do there is not move masters to the distribution system, so we're protecting storage even more. And this is the kind of model that Akomi, that our friends at North Shore has operated for a while, and CatDV can do a very similar thing, particularly with the MasterCat workflows that we launched a week ago. So what we're doing there, so a subset of content, a separate CatDV server hosted in a DMZ, again protected by a separate web server. We know that some people like to use this model for review and approve. So you're pushing content from the main CatDV system into the distribution system for review and approve purposes. And then you can also use it as a web uploader. You can turn off a lot of the CatDV browse and search capabilities. Even if you wanted to, you could just use our user interface toolkit and write a front end to CatDV that just has the uploader in it, and maybe capturing a bit of metadata at the same time. So that would be a really good way of harvesting content, which you could then push through some sensible virus checking and quarantine style processes to make sure that the content's safe before adding it to your CatDV system at the base. So that's number 4, our distribution server. Number 5 is external shared links. So what this is doing is sharing links to one or more pieces of media that's stored in CatDV. So these are examples of the kind of things that we can do with customization. These don't come straight out of the box, although we have a little plugin for Dropbox, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And we can either share stuff directly, or in fact the worker's a pretty cool way of doing it too, now that we have such immediate notifications and actions that happen right away. So there was a customer that needed a Dropbox integration, and what they wanted to do was to be able to choose an asset in CatDV and then have CatDV upload it to Dropbox, and then CatDV know about that URL, so we could email people to say, hey, you don't use CatDV, our system's completely separate from Dropbox. We don't use Dropbox for any of the stuff we do other than being able to deliver a file to Dropbox so that people outside of the CatDV universe can get at it. And so, in fact, if I just go ahead a page and get rid of me, here is an example of the kind of thing that we've built. This is, I'll see if I can make this a little bigger. Yeah. Okay, so what this is so the Dropbox action, that was a field that someone had entered there, and it's going to a particular Dropbox account, and it's been uploaded to Dropbox when that process is run. Let me see if I can zoom into a better place. There we go. Okay, so then it's showing me the path on Dropbox, and it's showing me the public link for this video once it had been uploaded. And so that's the kind of CatDV view in Web 3. And then underneath is exactly what we'd see if we then logged on to that link and had a look at the page on Dropbox. So there's not much to see because Dropbox doesn't do metadata and stuff like CatDV does, but that video has been copied up to Dropbox. So that wasn't a huge piece of customization for that customer, but a really useful one, very, very practical way of being able to share media outside the organization. So that's one way. Another way is using a custom CatDV system. So it's a bit of a hybrid with the one we had before, where you're using a CatDV distribution server as a sole leaf to share links. And so we've got a nice little plugin that's been in use for about a year now with one of our major customers, a book publisher. And what that does is you use share links like you would do normally in CatDV, that lets you say, okay, I want to share this link with these people. I want it to last for 1 week while they look at it. And you can expire links and all of that kind of stuff too. And what we do is we send that content, a proxy, and the metadata up to a separate CatDV server. In this case, we do it with a cloud. It's an EC2 Amazon web server, Amazon server running CatDV. And then we get review and approve comments that we can then use in CatDV. So that's a way of being able to share like just a small number of files for review and approve workflows in a pretty secure way. The main CatDV server can check for comments, so the CatDV server is going out to the Amazon server and saying, hey, have you got any comments for us, rather than the Amazon server having any right to go back into the internal network. So that means that all connections are originating from the CatDV end, the master CatDV end, again, which prevents anybody getting any intrusion to the CatDV system because no inbound connections are allowed. So, and I mentioned those because it's one of the things you'll hear me bang on about quite a lot. CatDV is a platform with the APIs that we have added over the last, well, 3 or 4 years. Then it becomes a great basis for any media-oriented application, whether it's review and approve, whether it's a project management tool for media applications, for booking studio space and getting authors to review stuff. That platform and the customizations we can do really mean that we think it's the best of buy versus build. You can have the experience of a fully customized, bespoke, made-for-me system, but with much more like the cost of a off-the-shelf product. And so we know a lot of customers find that pretty exciting, particularly given the number of extremely expensive and slow to customize tools that are out there. So that is our kind of 1 through 5. So let's just kind of quickly recap. So we talked through, I guess, the main options that we've got: PC over IP, screen sharing, VPNing, sharing CatDV natively and using our web clients, as well as IP connectivity to get to our desktop clients and worker. Having a separate CatDV distribution system, and then being able to do customizations for specific workflows. So all of those things are completely valid, and some of them work better in some organizations than others. We are running our special. We're trying to do our part as part of the difficult times in which we live and show respect to our CatDV customers. And so we are offering free of charge consulting help or assistance to say, well, okay, what have you got? How's CatDV set up for you? What's going to be the best way of trying to get these things set up? And trying to help you and your IT teams to get those things actually up and running. So do let us know, support@squarebox.com or sales@squarebox.com, and we'll help get going with all of that. So the next piece is to showcase remote proxy editing. I think there's Matthew. You've been invisible man. Look, for a bit. Let me.
I didn't want my head bobbing to distract from your messages, Dave.
Oh, okay, very cool. Yeah, so I shall hand over to you at this point, and if you could show us the new Premiere Panel 5 doing its funky stuff, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I do, I just wanted to touch on something that Dave mentioned, which again might be quite useful for those of you that are either using VPN or remote connections to the offices at the moment. So traditionally, the CatDV client, the Pegasus or the Enterprise client, would connect to the CatDV server on a different port from the web, the one that the web server was running on, and there was almost a negotiation process. So it would connect to the server, and then it would negotiate to talk on a different port, a random port that was randomly allocated. And this could sometimes cause problems for people where they had a sort of segregated network environment, or they had VPN restrictions or firewall restrictions. So in the latest versions and server and client, as Dave alluded to in his slides, normally when you log on, you would just put the host name of your server, so my server, myserver.com or whatever. If you prefix this now with the HTTP protocol like that, and say
you're not sharing a screen at the moment, Matthew.
Sorry.
At least I can't.
There we go.
Yeah,
that would help. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. So when you connect to the CatDV server, if you change the host name rather than just being the machine name, and actually prefix it with HTTP, followed by the port that the web server is running on, what the CatDV client is going to do is tunnel all of its connections over that instead, rather than using the traditional RMI. So I think for those of you, I've heard a couple of people mention that are having problems connecting back from the client to their server back at base. This might be something that's useful. So drop us a support ticket, support@squarebox.com, and we can have a look at that as well. So. But yeah, so if I get my web client up, then sort of we wanted to talk you through a remote working scenario. So I suppose to set the scene, you've got your system back at the facility, you've got your CatDV server, you've got your media, you've got your Adobe media encoders all running back there. But now your staff are at home and they've got web access to the CatDV server. So how can we manage a project in that way? So we've already mentioned in a couple of our webinars about the project tools, so you could use that to set up your catalog. What I've done is I've created the catalog here. It's a 5-minute news article on CatDV. So depending on how you work, you could use the web uploader here. So you could start uploading files into that catalog as you would normally, and then use your worker to file those appropriately. The other thing you could do is something that people don't use so heavily, but I think is a really useful tool, is clip lists. So if you have a clip list media for Matthew, you can start finding the bits of media that you want to use, for example, and then you can start adding those clips to the clip list. So I can add that to an existing clip list. So I can start finding the clips. So say I'm an edit assistant and I want to highlight some content for my editor, then I can start adding these things to clip lists. And we're finding that these are really useful for people when they're in a sort of remote working scenario. So once I've done that, I can effectively bring up Premiere. And what I'm going to do is I'm now at home and I've got Premiere and I want to start bringing media into my project. So I'm going to create a new project, and Premiere likes to put that on a different screen for me. So I'm going to call this, I don't know, Dave wants me to make a CatDV teaser video. Okay, so that's going to be my project. I'm going to set that up. And while Premiere does its thing, I need to log in to the CatDV server with my CatDV panel. And once I've done that, I've now got access to my catalog of media and everything else back at base. So, and in fact, the clip list. So I created this clip list media for Matthew. There it is. There's the 2 clips that I want to use in my project. Okay, so I'm going to import those into my Premiere project. But before I do, for those of you that haven't seen the new functionality, we've actually got an ability to download the proxies locally. So what I've done on my C drive here is I've created a cache folder called Premiere Temp. And this is on my local laptop or machine at home. So the Premiere panel is going to download the media from the CatDV server and place it in this folder. And the way I configure that is with this little cog up here. And what I need to do is tell it the location for where I want Premiere to put those files. So I'm going to cache those locally. And I need to check this box here to say download the project files and the project media to my local cache. Now, at the moment, there's no Premiere file on the server back at base, so I need to make that. So that's what I've started with here. But I can take my 2 clips and I can import them into my Premiere project. And you'll see, as well as importing them, it's actually downloading the proxies for me behind the scenes. So they're now in my project over here. So I could create a bin called footage, and I could just move those clips into that footage bin. If I look at the properties of one of these clips, you'll actually see that what it's done is the high-res location is the path on the storage back at the facility, but the proxy location is this temp file on my local machine. So it's downloaded that file and then it's referenced the proxy media to the local cache, so that I can actually do an edit with this. Now, as we know, obviously editors will go to their CatDV system and they'll get all the components that they need, but they might be in the middle of an edit and they might think, oh, I need to make a new asset, or I need to make an effect or something in After Effects. So we've also thought about that scenario. So say I've got some media on my local machine that I want to include in this project. So Dave says, right, Matthew, you need to get the CatDV logo at the beginning. I can just drop that into my project and it comes into the bin here. So now I've got 2 bits of media from my remote system and I've got a bit of media from my local system. And I can start putting these into my timeline. So yeah, let's build up a bit of the timeline. Now, I'm sure you guys are much better at using Premiere than I am, so excuse my my editing, but I'm sure you get the idea. So I've built up my sequence, and yeah, let's put in the iPhone bit of media as well. Maybe do a bit of very light brush editing, and yeah, I'm gonna rename that sequence. So I'm gonna call it teaser final. Okay, so that's my sequence done. So once I've built up my project, what I need to do is I now need to send all this data back to my CatDV system. So using my CatDV panel, effectively what I need to do is find the catalog that I want to send this Premiere project to. So I've actually got it in a production group called News. It's got today's date, 5-minute and CatDV. So there's nothing in this catalog at the moment. But what I can say is I can say project publish. And what the Premiere panel is going to do is it's going to upload the Premiere project file from my machine back to the CatDV server. And it's also going to upload any media that I've added locally. So it won't upload the iPad or the iPhone video because they've come from the CatDV server, but it is going to upload the logo.mp4 file that I added in on my local machine. So let's do that. So it's saving. You can see it's doing some uploading now. So what it's done is it's in my catalog in CatDV, I've now got my Premiere project file, and I've also got my CatDV logo, which I added locally. Now, the reason that's gone into the catalog is because that's been added at the point that I've published the project. So the other 2 bits of media had already come from the CatDV system. So maybe they were sat in your resource production group or in your asset production group in your normal sort of asset hierarchy. So effectively, they don't get added into the catalog at that point. But what I can do is if I go back to my web client in CatDV, just to show you, if I go into this catalog now, you can see I've got this Premiere Pro file here effectively. And what I can do is I can actually, with a special tab, I can actually see the contents of that Premiere file. So it's showing me the different clips that have made that up and where they've come from effectively. So this is quite useful, so you can see effectively what's happened there. So I've got a couple of worker actions as well to analyze this and move this to an appropriate place. So effectively on my disk, I've used the project tool, which we'll talk about in another webinar, but actually I've got my news project here and I've got my CatDV project here, and here's my folder structure. So what I've used my CatDV worker to do is when I've uploaded that project file, it's gone and moved it into the project folder automatically. So it's gone and filed that for me on disk. So effectively now it's been moved, and you'll see the media path here is updated because my worker's moved it for me. So it's gone into mount storage projects and it's filed it in the correct location for me. So I build my projects in this way. Other users can then check that project out and start, making changes to it. But at some point, I'm going to want to render that file out with my Adobe Media Encoder. So in the CatDV Premiere panel, you can have a different set of tabs up here. So these are our panels, and I've got a different set for my Premiere client. So if anyone wants to see how that's configured, just briefly, if I go into my settings in CatDV, if I go into my panels, you'll see I've got two different panel sets. I've got a default web panel set, which has got all my normal tabs for my web client, but I've also got a Premiere panel set here. And you'll see in the visibility column, I'm specifically targeting the Premiere plugin. So when I'm in the web client, normally I will get all of these panels here when I'm looking. So if I go to my project and I will get, summary, proxy, logging, markers, review and approve. But when I'm in my Premiere panel, I'm only getting summary and render. So this render panel is a special one I've added to do this. And you'll see I've got a single checkbox on it that says render Premiere project. So I'm going to check that value to say I now want to render this Premiere project and press save. So that will save the metadata back to the server. And you'll see I've got a worker action here. I wasn't quick enough dragging it into the screen. But effectively what it's done is it's taken a copy of that Premiere Pro project file and it's moved it into my watch folder for Adobe Media Encoder. So you can see now I've got Adobe Media Encoder running. It's picked up that Premiere project file that's been dropped into its watch folder, and it's now doing a render for me. So you can see it's up to the iPad video, and it's spitting that back out into the output folder of my watch folder. So when it's finished its encode, I should have a nice finished video from that. And the other thing that I've got in my worker is I've got a watch action to monitor the output. So you have to imagine this encoding is now taking place back at the facility. So it's got all the high-res material, it's doing the final output, and that render is now going to appear in another folder, which I'm also monitoring. So let me just see if that's coming in now. But effectively, I've got another catalog in my web interface just to show you where all my renders are going to end up. So I've got a render catalog here, and effectively when Adobe is finished encoding that file, I'm going to be able to monitor that watch folder. It's actually just come into my worker now. So you see it's picked up the final render that I produced. So Adobe Media Encoder has created that. It's just transcoding it at the moment to create my proxy, and you'll see it's here in my catalog. So we'll just give that a little bit of time to render. But hopefully this is showing you how you can build these sort of workflows where you've got your editors at home editing with proxies. And don't forget, that doesn't have to be the low-res web H.264 proxy. You could actually configure an intermediary mezzanine format as well. But obviously, we don't necessarily want them bringing the high-res back. And hopefully, you should see I've got my final rendered file back in CatDV that I built with Premiere, and there's the iPad video. I probably need to tweak some of my Adobe Media Encoder settings to get that looking a bit sweeter, but there you go. So yeah, that's what I wanted to demo for you guys today, and just show you one particular sort of workflow that we kind of honed in on really for remote working.
That's great. Thank you very much, Matthew. That looked really slick. Really, yeah, very cool. Very cool. So yeah, we should say a big note of thanks to our chief architect, John, as well, who rushed out this new capability in time for our no NAB announcement last week. So it's pretty simple, but also pretty usable, and we expect it to be. We're getting a lot of interest in it at the present time. Okay, so then let's move on. I mean, essentially, that is the end of our prepared content. So that's time for kind of Q&A, I guess. Before we do, we're still going to be keeping open our You Can Book Me. It seems to be really popular that folks are booking in to find out about the new stuff and how it affects them in their facilities. So catdv-nab-2020.youcanbook.me, and this link will be in the follow-up email, which includes the recording tomorrow. So do book up a one-to-one if you'd like to talk about how any of our news, and in particular our Premier Panel 5, could help you out. And one of our team would be very pleased to try and help out with that. Behind my head is our free tech advice for remote setup, like I mentioned at the beginning. If folks do want some advice about what's the best model out of our 4 or 5 to be able to set up remote and home working, then we're more than happy to help with that. And then a bit of a plug for next week's webinar. So as you might remember, we're doing a webinar each week. There's so much new content that we are trying to share as much of it through this kind of communication as we can. So next week's topic is our project and folder creation tool. We'll go quite deep into how we can create templates to set up file and folder naming and use CatDV variables and counters to be able to number projects and name projects to ensure consistency between CatDV's metadata and the stuff that people see on storage, which just means that change management and usage of CatDV and our processes is going to be much more adopted. Prevents sticky fingers and mistyping folder and file names as well. So it's a pretty useful thing. And again, lots of interest in that. So that'll be the same time next week. So then I guess I should ask Hannah if you could help us with any questions that we have had come through.
Yeah, of course. So let's start going through the questions. As we do, if you have any other questions you can think of, just feel free to send them in and we'll keep running through them. So the first question is about Web3, and somebody was saying, when is Web3 going to be ready to download?
Right now.
It is. So Web3 is part of Server 9, and Server 9 is on the website now. So it's available to anybody that has a current maintenance contract, anybody that's got heavy customizations that makes extensive use of our user interface design toolkit or our JavaScript APIs. We strongly suggest that we help you to do a test upgrade in a separate environment, but otherwise it's a standard CatDV update, which either our support team can help you with. We encourage that, or you can just go and do yourselves.
So I'm just trying to group some of these questions together. So web client again, for the upload form, is it catalog specific? In other words, can we change the form so a different form is displayed for each catalog?
It's production group specific, not catalog specific. So you can have different upload forms for different production groups and also different roles, but not for different catalogs.
And then I guess slightly linked is there an app to allow simple iPhone or iPad video uploads?
No, but Web3 has been designed to run on iPads and iPhones, and the upload functionality is built in from there. So as long as you can access your CatDV website from your iPhone, you can upload, you could take a video. I've seen Dave do it in the training session. He took a video on his phone and he uploaded it to his CatDV server straight from his iPhone. So yeah, that's absolutely possible in Web3.
Wonderful. And then some Premier Panel questions. So somebody's asking how they can get hold of the Premier Panel and how it's priced.
Yeah, so is it on the website for download currently, Matthew?
It should be. If not, we'll definitely make sure it is.
Yeah, I think it should be on the website. So the Premier Panel it's a separate SKU if you want it to be, but anybody that has a desktop client has a right to use the panel on that same machine. So our attitude is, look, if you've got a CatDV desktop client, then we want to give people the choice to either run desktop client and push content into Adobe, or to be able to pull stuff from the panel. So you can install, for every desktop client on that same machine, you get one panel that you can use to pull content as part of that desktop client pricing, and then there's a separate SKU for it for any other ones. So we know some customers have got like 4 or 5 CatDV clients and 100 panels. That, so you can do that.
Excellent. So the next question was about team working. So if somebody else downloads my Premiere project file, assuming using the panel, does it automatically download all the associated media?
Yeah, so if they download that Premiere project, it will download all the media that's referenced in it when it was last uploaded to the server. So as I said, if person A starts working on the project, they add some local media that gets uploaded. If person B then goes to work on it at a later date, all of that media will get brought down to their local cache.
Yeah. Do people have to be careful about, so do you have to be careful that across a facility that everybody has to have the same cache folder for their proxies, or?
No, they can have different cache folders.
Yeah.
So that's configured on a per panel basis.
Okay. Cool.
Wonderful. So again, I guess the next question, still talking about working as a team, is Matthew, on the demo you did showing the web client page. In the Premiere project metadata, the clip showed is linked to a C drive. How's that going to be impacted if someone else picks up the project later?
So I guess they mean when you've added it to your high res, effectively it would, when they uploaded the Premiere project file, it would need to be relinked to the location backup base actually. So yeah, maybe they drop me an email, matthew@squarebox.com. We could have a look at how that could work for their workflow. But yeah, there's going to be a way of relinking.
Excellent. So then the next question is there a way to see if a project is checked out?
This functionality that we've added fairly rapidly doesn't have a notion of check in and check out for different people having projects. We have kind of experimented with check in and check out functionality, which allows you to, it sort of warns you to say somebody else has got this project checked out. But it used quite a different model. It didn't have this sort of caching facility. This was before sort of current world events. So it was more designed for people working in a facility where they were directly connected to their high res and proxy media rather than being a remote worker. We do still have that functionality, which can be turned on, but it does need a little bit of thought about the workflow, specifically because when you check in a project, it checks all that associated media into the catalog, whereas with the remote working functionality, it only adds to the catalog the new files that haven't already been pulled from the CatDV server.
And then I think we've got time for one more question. So other than the manual, are there other training resources for CatDV?
We have CatDV University, and that has a different manual and agenda. We are working out, and we haven't worked out yet, how we reconfigure CatDV University to be a thing that we do, which isn't face-to-face. We get a lot of benefit from being in the same room and being able to walk around and help folks that are struggling a bit. And just kind of being able to read who is struggling a bit, if they are. CatDV University is the way that we get additional training. I mean, there can be one-to-one training that we often do as part of our deployment projects. And again, that works quite well. That works well remotely. But for classroom training, we have had CatDV University with the travel restrictions. I can't imagine us running one of them anytime soon. But we do have it on our agenda. Possibly even next week to have some further thoughts about how that could operate.
Wonderful. So I think that's all we've got time for today. If you've got any other questions, please send them into sales@squarebox.com and one of our team will get back to you. Otherwise, thank you for taking the time to join us today, and we hope we'll see you again soon at one of our upcoming webinars.
Very cool. Cool. Thanks
for joining, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.